And away we go. Another edition of Picks and Roll. Sean Brace, Sean Barnard. Sean covers all things Sixers and NBA for us here on Fox Sports The Gambler. And we got another Sixers matchup coming up this evening, taking on the Clippers. The boys return home, so we got some fun stuff to discuss there. Of course, last night, only 4 games in the association. And tonight, the opposite end of the spectrum. Everybody got to get these games in before the next Thursday and Friday here. We got 12 games to discuss in the NBA. Sean Barnard, good afternoon. How are we doing today, sir?
Yeah, doing well. A little bit of break of the college action. So for one night, NBA's tapping into the center stage, and then we'll be back to the madness tomorrow. So excited about all this, and excited to see the James Harden return to Philadelphia for the first time since the trade. So a little bit of buzz in the air.
Now, he did not talk to the media after game on Sunday. Will he even
Correct.
play in tonight's game?
I believe he will play. He downplayed a lot of it when he spoke to the LA media the next day. I mean, he's James Harden. We know the story at this point for how all these things go. He just didn't want to avoid the story. You're not going to quite be able to do that tonight. So I'm curious what the reaction is going to be. I do expect boos. I think Harden, I was really trying to think of what James Harden's legacy in Philadelphia should be. And I think what I finally came to is I think he should be viewed in positive light as the reason why Tyrese Maxey's taking some of these next strides. That I think we throw it around so often of you bring in a veteran, it'll help the young guys. Tyrese is an example of you can clearly see the fingerprints of James Harden on his game. The way that he attacks one-on-one matchups, the way that he gets to his step backs, gets to his spots, attack the rim. You do see the influence of James Harden. So I think he should be remembered fondly for that.
I am I'm pushed towards that side. I am. The problem is I just have that in the game 7 performance where he just completely gave up in the back of my mind. Number one. Number two, he, the whole Morey situation, I get it. Yeah, look, if I'm going down there, I'm not booing James Harden. I'm not going to boo him. I'd give him, thank you, James.
Yeah.
Let's play ball. Now you play for the Clippers. Now I'll boo you. But when pregame introductions, I would, he went out there. He balled for us. It was a fun season.
Yeah.
It was a terrible ending, but it was a fun season to have James Harden play for the Sixers. I enjoyed it.
It's worth a shot.
Yeah. And the whole Morey stuff, all right. Should we take that personal as fans? He didn't want to play for the Sixers. It was just him and Morey. Morey didn't want to give him the money. It's business,
Yeah.
And as you bring that up right now, James Harden return, I'm not inclined to boo him one bit. I'd be interested to get the pulse of the people out there. Again, I think there's a lot of people that just want blood and something to do on a Wednesday evening down at the Wells Fargo Center where this team needs to find a way to win a basketball game. It's the least of my concerns. It really would be as a fan going down there. But we'll see. That's all part of, the price of admission, right? You know, you got a ticket, you got a voice. We'll see how that one plays out. We'll discuss tonight's games. We'll get into that. We'll fire up DraftKings Sportsbook. New users take advantage of all the promos that they got going on. Make sure you use Brace as the promo code. New users only. The March Mania 5 for $150 deal going on. Definitely something to keep your eyes on for new users on DraftKings Sportsbook. Promo code Brace. All right. To last night first. Open up shop. Hello, Doc Rivers. Up 19 points in the fourth quarter against the LA Lakers. This was a fantastic ball game. Caught second half. Was in and out in the third quarter. Watched the fourth quarter pretty good as the Lakers were making their run down 19. Overtimes, both overtimes were great, right? Went to double OT? Yeah, went to double OT. Both OTs were great. And I was shocked that the Lakers came away with the victory. No LeBron James. They couldn't miss on the stretch, though. Some big shots were made. Spencer Dinwiddie pulled up from downtown. Reeves pulled up from downtown. Reggie Miller, he just does too much for me. He said something along the lines that Damian Lillard was a top 10 player of all time in NBA history. He is not a top 10 basketball player all time, right? Am I out of my mind?
No, you're not. He made the top 75 list, and frankly, I would debate that I think that's a little strong of a top 75 player ever. And for top 10, I think that's not even in the question in my mind. I don't think he's even a top 10 player in the NBA right now, let alone all time. Obviously, he's not in his prime of his career, he's on the downside, no doubt about it. But yeah, I think the Dame Lillard conversations, everyone remembers him fondly because he was like this good story, fun loving guy out there in Portland, being loyal, all these things. But the bottom line is like results are still the results. He hasn't really accomplished that much. No ring on his finger. We know the All Stars and things he can do. One of the most clutch players and a cool player, a very fun guy to root for. But as far as just overall greatness, I do think it's very much overstated there.
Reggie just does too much. And I think he's always been that way. It's never really bothered me, but as of late, and especially what took place over the All-Star break or the All-Star festivities, him and Kenny,
Yeah.
dude, I've had enough of Reggie Miller. There's just no reason for you to say that in that moment. Like you get so caught up to the point that you're going to make that statement. The history of the game, the greatest basketball players of all time, and you're going to say Damian Lillard is a top 10 basketball player of all time. It really irks me. It just does. There's no need for it. The game, let it speak for itself.
For sure. And I think people have been doing that a lot lately of like almost ruining very good basketball games by making these big picture conversations. It's like, let's talk about the shot that he just hit or the moments that it's about to happen with the game on the line rather than these big picture conversations of where they rank all time or what the best player in the game is right now or this guy should be in the MVP conversation. Like, let's just zoom in on the picture a little bit, focus on what is exactly happening in front of us and call the game, which is your job at the time, is to call the actual action that's happening. So is that has definitely been lost in the conversation far more than it should be. And you can blame whoever you want for this, whether it's the media, the way we talk about things, whatever. But the bottom line is just make the most of the basketball game because that's what the story should be.
Well said. And that's what we're going to do here. Anything else to add from last night? Again, hey, your boy back on the winning side. Had the Warriors. Now, I do want to point out that I had the Warriors before the news broke. And I think that maybe the odds makers had it before anybody. We know that. It was a point spread. Warriors were favored on the road, 1.5 at Miami. Immediately, lights went off in my head, and I just said, Warriors are winning tonight. And the next thing you know, you saw Jimmy Butler. Somebody else was out for the Miami Heat last night. Somebody else sat. That was a decent player. I forget. But the big one was Jimmy Butler, of course. And the line ballooned up to 6. I think 6-point spread was the number as the game went off. So I felt pretty comfortable in my spot. And the Warriors went down to Miami and handled business. 113-92. Game wasn't really close in the second half. Third quarter mainly. Warriors went on that run. We already hit on the Lakers 128-124. Thunder took down the Pelicans 119-112. Game being played in New Orleans. Nice victory there by OKC. Giddey with 25 and Zion finished with 29 and 10. And then finally, the topsy-turvy Kings. Anytime I give them a little bit of credit, what do? Slap you in the face. They got absolutely boat raced by the Mavericks, 132-96. I believe you like the Mavs there, Sean Barnard. Anything for you from last night's game? Only 4 of them to choose from.
Yeah, I'll give Luka a little shout out. Finished with 28, 11, and 6. And frankly, I think he was better than those numbers would indicate. Checked in on that game for a decent bit, called it before the end, before things got fully out of hand there. But Dallas is still a sneaky team to me. They're a team that I'm not counting out in the playoff conversation in the Western Conference. That Luka is a playoff riser. We've seen it year in, year out. I do believe in Kyrie as a second option there. And the pieces that they've added, the Derek Lively's, Daniel Gafford's, PJ Washington's, these are players that I do think can make an impact for this team. So Dallas is a team I have my eye on, and I don't think that's a win to just brush under the rug there.
You know, some people were discussing that the possible Pacific Division would be open up for grabs with Sacramento. They're 12-1. Do you have a take on a future as far as divisions are concerned now that we're 10 games away from closing up a regular season here? 162, excuse me. Thank God we don't play 162 NBA games. We'll leave that for baseball. 82 NBA games played. I did see some people that I respect in the industry talking about the Sacramento Kings at 12-1 to win that division is worth a flyer. Anything for you on that one?
Yeah, divisions are tough for me. That I don't stay as up to date on the divisions in basketball compared to a lot of sports. Conference is definitely something I have my eye on much more. Pulling up the divisional stuff to take a look at right now. I think a lot of it is pretty locked up. Obviously, the Celtics with a 13.5-point lead in their division, which is the most notable one there. Cleveland on Milwaukee's here when looking at the East. I don't mind Miami over to make a run over Orlando. That Miami 3.5 games back there. I still feel like this Magic team's going to hit a wall at some point. There's obviously the games are winding down, so
Plus
I think that
310 for the Miami Heat to win that division. Magic minus 425.
I don't hate that. That's something I see a little bit of value in. Northwest is tight. But you're more or less betting the Western Conference for the Northwest Division, as that's Denver and OKC in that.
Right.
Sacramento 2.5 game of the Clippers. What are the odds on the Kings over Clippers there?
12-1, and then the Clippers are just locked in at minus 1,600. But if the Clippers come over here and lose tonight, again, I can't put my hard-earned money on Sacramento because every time I want to give them some sort of credit, they throw up a dud like last night. So they're 12-1 at this point in time. 10 games left. Too much ground to make up in your mind?
What's Phoenix's odds there?
Phoenix was 20-1, and that's what was interesting to me because if I'm not mistaken, I remember the host talking about Sacramento and Phoenix, not even discussing the Clippers. So as I bring that up, and I'm like, wait a minute, yeah, the Clippers are in that Pacific Division again. The divisions are a little out there for all of us. I get it, but it is something that's catching my attention with only 10 games to be played.
I think I might be able to talk myself into Phoenix a little more. For what it's worth, both Phoenix and Sacramento both tied with a 42-30 record, 2.5 games back of this Clippers team. The Clippers look like they're leaking oil, man, and I don't know if this is something where it's just getting the train back on the tracks. It feels like there's some real deal issues at the absolute worst time of the season. So I think I might be more in on Phoenix. I might take a little flyer on that.
All right. Let's get on over to tonight's games. And of course, the 76ers and Clippers are at the top of everybody's minds. 5.5 on DraftKings Sportsbook. 216 is our total here. 740 tip down at the Wells Fargo Center. A little Wednesday night action. Love to have the boys back in town. Clippers, are they, look, licking their chops to get back after the Sixers after they just lost to them on Sunday night? Or is this just something completely different? Anything speaking to you from the total? Where are you at in this game, Sean?
Yeah, I lean towards the Sixers to cover the 5.5 in this one. That I do think this is a matchup that it has less to do with desire, less to do with anything more about the Clippers having some real deal internal issues. That it does feel like that there is something missing within that team, something that is not quite clicking in the way that it absolutely was earlier on in the year. And I do like the Sixers to battle around and stick with this team. That while the Clippers no doubt have the talent advantage when you're speaking about Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, James Harden, and the other key players on that roster, I do think the Sixers team has a little more just I buy their ability to bring it on a night by night basis just from a competitive standpoint. The talent gap is going to be there, but I do think the Sixers team will have their foot on the gas and there will be a little added juice for the James Harden return. So I like the plus 5.5. The Clippers will absolutely be looking for revenge, but I think this is more about them having some struggles that they need to figure out than them being able to just flip the switch.
What's the latest to Kelly Oubre for the Sixers?
I think listed as questionable. It seems like there's some optimism that he will play tonight. It didn't seem like a big deal, shoulder injury type of thing. So the hope is that he will be back.
Currently, Sixers 8th place, one half game behind the Miami Heat for 7th. Top 6 seeds avoid the playing game, so we know how important that is. Clippers fresh off a 2-game losing streak. Sixers, we know what took place. Losers of 3 of 4 on the road, if I'm not mistaken. The only victory, of course, took place when they beat the Clippers 121-107. Maxey had 29 in that one. Remember, he opened up shop, 21 in the first quarter. Tobias actually, no, I don't think Tobias played well in that one, if I'm not mistaken. There's not too many that he does, but bottom line is they're going to need everybody to play their role here if they're going to come away with the victory against the Clippers team. That's losers of 2 straight now, Pacers and Sixers. So I'm sure they're hungry for a dub tonight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and again, this to me has more to do with I do think there's something wrong with that team. That it is a little ironic that we're seeing a little bit of the negative effects of James Harden, which we saw here in Philadelphia, as far as jockeying for your contract position. We're seeing Paul George do a similar thing, and it is, I think, disruptive to a team. I do think it does put a bad taste in a lot of guys' mouths, and I do think that it is translating on the court, that the guys aren't quite on the same page, that we're seeing. It's really strange to me because if you flash back to midway through this year, it looked like everybody was on the same page. Everything was clicking. And this looks like just a drastically different Clippers team. And again, the Sixers went into Los Angeles and beat them on their home court just on Sunday. That we'll see how things shake out. I'm not guaranteeing a Sixers win, but I do like them to cover the plus 5.5 and keep this one close. I think it's going to be a battle tonight.
All right, next game up on the DraftKings card. Let's talk about the Warriors and the Orlando Magic. As I'm looking at the numbers here, how about this? The Warriors won. That was their 11th time in their last 14 road games that they won yesterday when they beat the Miami Heat, 113-92. Now they head north to Orlando, Miami, Orlando. Yep. And they are taking on the Orlando Magic. Pretty good home squad, but last time out for the Orlando Magic, they ended up losing to the Sacramento Kings 109 to 107. Last time that these two teams met up was in San Francisco on January 2nd, 121 to 115 victory for Golden State. Klay Thompson went off in that one. So here we are tonight. Once again, DraftKings showing 4.5 for the Orlando Magic, 218. Kind of leaning towards the home squad here. Sean, where you at?
Yeah, I'm riding with the away dogs here. I'm buying the hungry dogs run faster, and the Warriors better be pretty hungry right now because as things currently stand in that 10 seed, 37 and 34, they have not played their best basketball. And I think a lot of it is obviously the aging, them having some struggles as a team. But this Magic team is one that I still have a little bit more of a ceiling on than I think a lot of people do. I have some concerns with the lack of shooting on that team. Paolo's awesome. Franz Wagner's awesome. Jalen Suggs is terrific. They have a ton of talent on that roster, but I just don't love the way it all fits together. I think this is a situation where the Warriors have hit their wake up call. They're not the team that they once were, but they're still a dangerous basketball team. And I think they show that tonight, cover the plus 4.5, and have a chance to win outright on that plus 160 number.
All right. Going head to head on that one.
Yeah, early start.
I'm going to ride with the Orlando Magic here. Yeah, I'm going to take the Magic minus 4.5. Buck the trend of everything that the Warriors have shown us as of late. Again, 11 to 14. Looked great yesterday against that depleted Miami Heat roster, but I think the Orlando Magic, who have been one of the better basketball teams in the league as a whole over the last few weeks, continue that. Now, can they hit a wall over the next 10 games? Yeah, I think you're onto something there. It's a young squad, but they're at home tonight, so I'll take my shot here. Give them 4.5 to the Golden State Warriors. All right,
By the way,
next.
mid-season, I was pounding the table for a Jonathan Isaac trade for the Sixers. He looks unbelievable this recent stretch. And I get the concerns with Isaac. A lot more of them have to do with off-court stuff than his actual play. And obviously the injury concerns are there as well. But the dude, as a pure basketball player, looks like a defensive player of the year candidate over the recent stretch. So keep an eye on that. He's becoming a more and more important part of their team and deserves to be, because when he's locked in, there's very few defenders that I would consider better than him.
Let's talk about the Brooklyn Nets and the Washington Wizards. Game being played in D.C. Brooklyn, 3.5-point favorites on DraftKings. 221's our total. Game tipping off at 7:10 p.m. Give me your thoughts on Kevin Ollie. 6-12 since taking over for Jacques Vaughn. Again, not the easiest franchise, not the easiest team to slide in 3/4 of the way into the season and take over here. Anything you're taking away from Kevin Ollie? Is he going to be the head coach next year moving forward? What is your take on the Brooklyn Nets right now?
Yeah, I've always liked Kevin Ollie. That I liked him back to his college days at UConn doing his thing, and I've been impressed with him as a basketball mind overall. I haven't seen a ton that I've been overly impressed with this Brooklyn team. I don't mean that as a criticism of him. It's a lot more to do with what he has to work with. That this Brooklyn team, I would argue, is in the worst position of any team in the NBA as far as they don't have their draft picks moving forward. They don't have the top end talent to compete. I think they kind of missed the boat on trading Mikal Bridges. That I think that probably should have been the move to blow this up and go full rebuild. I think they're trying to dance that middle ground, and that's not a good spot to be as an organization. So I think Kevin Ollie's been dealt a bad hand, but he absolutely has the inside track on keeping this job. And overall, I think he's a really good basketball coach. So could be well earned. But I will say I'm a pro Jacques Vaughn guy as well. So I feel a little bad for him catching the firing midseason.
I agree with that. That's what I mean. That organization is a lost cause, but
Yeah.
Good luck to Kevin Ollie. Anyways, Washington Wizards, winners of 3 straight. How about that? Took down the Kings on the 21st, took down the Raptors on the 23rd, took down the Bulls on the 25th. Will they stay hot, Sean Barnard, tonight? Your thoughts?
I think so. I'm riding with the dog again. That I like Washington. Plus 3.5 and plus 130 on the money line. They are 5-5 in their last 10, which I would like to think is probably their best stretch of basketball all year. The Brooklyn Nets 2-8 over the same period. That this Wizards team, I don't know what to make of them. They're very much, it depends on the night for what you can get. But what I will say is they are taking strides in the right direction to at least play a brand of winning basketball. That it's not as much Jordan Poole just messing around for a long period of time, Kyle Kuzma doing his thing. So I think they're playing better team-oriented basketball. I think Brooklyn's a mess, and overall, I think Washington just finds a way to win this one.
Love when teams go back to back because sometimes it makes life a little easier as far as handicapping games. Most of the time it does not, but it gives you a little something to dive deeper. And that is the case here. The Charlotte Hornets are taking on the Cleveland Cavaliers. This game being played in Charlotte. 10.5, 206.5 is our total in this one. And as I just said, these two teams just matched up 2 nights ago in Charlotte. So we're running it back 115-92. The Cleveland Cavaliers took down the Hornets in that one, covered the 11-point spread in that one, over 206.5, as I said. And that's where we're at here. Identical numbers, essentially. Will there be anything different in tonight's game in your mind, Sean?
Yeah, I'll roll with the Hornets to cover the plus 10.5, just because I think it's tough to blow out a team in 2 consecutive games, even though there is absolutely a talent gap between this Cavs and Hornets team. I've been a little skeptical of this Cavs team as well, that they have had the tendency to throw up clunkers at time. The Sixers have beat them twice without Joel Embiid this season, and even more shorthanded at one of those games without Tyrese Maxey. So the Cavs are capable of having a clunker. I think this Hornets team's still fighting, and I've been impressed with that. Brandon Miller, I will highlight again, is the guy that I think sets the tone for that organization and is finding a way to bring his two-way influence, defend hard on the defensive side of the ball, still bringing his thing, his little Paul George light version on offense. So this Hornets team has more talent and is better than they've been given credit. I like them to at least make this a game and keep it comfortable. And more so, I don't think the Cavs are capable of blowing them out 2 consecutive games. So I like the plus 10.5.
All right, next game up, 7:40 tip. Knicks and Raptors. This game is being played in Toronto. Toronto's losers of 11 straight. The Knicks, are you prepared for this? Dante DiVincenzo. Who the heck is that bald guy? There's another bald guy walking through this place. Dante DiVincenzo is going to go down as the greatest three-point shooter in New York Knicks history.
Wow.
Numbers are there.
Yeah, I mean,
for 1 year.
I guess that's fair, and I will give Dante some love. I heard him describe, shout out to Combos Court, which is a cool little podcast over there, but he described him as a hustle guy that happens to be skilled, and that's kind of how he plays. That like he is a guy that he's there to do the grunt work, sky for rebounds, and then it's all of a sudden he's a real deal high level shooter, and he can create his own shot and get to his spot. So DiVincenzo has been a really important part of that team. He's taken every bit of the influence that he got during his time in Golden State and kept this with him. So it's been awesome to watch. And the Knicks have not quite lived up to my expectations over the second half of the season. No, I pounded the table pretty hard for them, but they're still a dangerous team that I want no part of in a 7-game series. So shout out to New York.
Yeah, they have won 6 of their last 7. They're 43-28. I think they're in the 3 seed as we sit here right now. Last time out, DiVincenzo went for a career best 40, 11 of 20 from downtown. They lumped up the Pistons pretty good, 124-99. Doesn't everybody do that? Anyways, to tonight's game, any shot you're back in the Raptors here?
Yeah, none. That the 13.5 is a lot for New York, but Toronto's been pretty much unwatchable from a basketball perspective. RJ Barrett and Emmanuel Quickly have been out, which is a big reason why. So until something like that changes, I don't see any world. Maybe there is some sort of reunion where they do suit up tonight. I know RJ's dealing with some serious stuff off the court, so prayers up in that regard. But this Toronto team's been really brutal. I don't see really a light at the end of the tunnel for things. This is a situation where they're trying to survive and get to next year. And for New York, they're still focused on making a playoff run. So I like the Knicks to have no issues tonight.
What's the latest with OG? Is he going to be back?
It's some weird reporting that I believe medically he's cleared and he has not suited up is essentially the situation, that he's still dealing with pain. He thinks it's more significant. I never like when there's these types of stories that break out, because then you start to get into some of the hearsay of what the player says versus what the medical personnel are saying. And oftentimes when that doesn't correlate, it gets pretty ugly. We saw what happened with Kawhi back in San Antonio, which ultimately forced him leaving there, where he was dealing with knee issues, kept complaining about it. The medical staff was saying, look, we can't find anything medically wrong, that you were cleared good enough to play basketball in our eyes, and he wasn't okay with that. I don't think it's quite to that extent with OG, but one of the reputations of him dating back to his Toronto days is he's not a guy that likes to play through pain. And I get that from his perspective, that obviously you want to be at your best every time you step up out there. But it is interesting how that's going to play out. So from what I'm reading and seeing, it sounds like the medical staff are pretty much ready for him to suit up and play, and OG doesn't feel quite the same way.
All right. Anything for you on Jonte Porter's props? Are we looking at unders tonight? I know, like, this is a guy that you have to have action on. Are we leaning towards the under on Jonte Porter's props tonight?
I think you're an absolute sicko if you ever are wagering on Jonte Porter props. I can't believe they were even. And I'm a little frustrated that they can get props on a two-way guy out there, and we can't get any Ricky Council IV or Terquavion Smith odds out here in Philadelphia. So, yeah, I think the red light should have gone on the second that there were being actual wagers on Jonte Porter is kind of my thought process and all that.
Yeah, and I think there were. I just don't assume that a lot of money was coming in. Still, the investigation is there. It's going on. I don't know if we'll be privy to every detail that's going to be cooked up, But I'm definitely interested from that standpoint. And look, he's suspended, so we're having a joke with it here. I just am laughing at all these ESPN. Quick sidebar here, because I saw people getting so bent out of shape over what Reese Davis said to Aaron Dolan, and
Right.
and I don't have an issue with that. If you have an issue, if you are so upset about what Reese Davis said, that's fine. I understand where you're coming from. I think Reese needs to be bigger and smarter. He's representing ESPN. Everybody is righteous in those takes. But over the last 24 hours, I have heard Mike Wilbon. I saw some Stunad on Around the Horn. I saw Shannon Sharp personally live. And I'm telling you, some of the things that they were saying were worse than what Reese Davis said. So I'm wondering where the outrage is for that, right? Like, you can't just jab and then, oh, I'm not watching. And, like, if you want to be this savior of all things sports gambling and call out and demand Reese Davis and like, how dare he make a joke? And I'm with you. He should be smarter. That was obviously one of his jokes in his repertoire that was put out there. He put it out there in college football. So it's like one of his go backs, and he's with Aaron Dolan, and he's like, oh, she sounds great. She knows what she's talking about. So we had a dumb take. What I heard from Shannon Sharp yesterday, that dumb on Around the Horn, talking about how NBA they can't control this. I tweeted it out. His exact words on Around the Horn, a columnist said, no way the NBA can regulate this, quote, talking about gambling on the games. That is 10 times worse inflammatory than what Reese Davis said. Where's the outrage? Shannon Sharp said on yesterday on First Take, forgive me watching it, he said that the only reason why we're hearing about Jonte Porter is because the NBA lost those bets. And if they didn't, therefore, no flags would have been raised. That's 10 times worse than Reese Davis. Wilbon, I don't even have to go down. You know what came out of Wilbon's mouth, talking about how we're going to hear this every day. Bottom line is, it worked. The red flags went off. And you're out of your mind if you don't think that a 20, 25-year-old dude in whatever sport is not going to be enticed to fire up DraftKings or FanDuel and say, you know what, let me get invested a little bit in an NBA game or an NFL game. Can't bet on your own league. That's totally legal. We get it. But we got young guys, and people are like, well, that's not good. 38 states have some form of legalization of sports gambling. This is going to happen. People are going to make mistakes. It's not a big damn deal. Relax, but get your clicks, get your takes. The sports gambling bubble is going to burst. My ass ain't going nowhere. Shut up.
Yeah, and there's a lot of hypocrisy in it that, like, even the stuff like, the ESPN's criticizing these guys as the odds just scroll along the ticker on the bottom, or they go to an interview presented by DraftKings or ESPN Bet or whatever it is, as you're openly criticizing these guys. So I get, like, the transition into the legalization, I don't think has been as seamless as it should be, because there's a lot of, I guess, the awareness and what you can and can't say. Those are important factors, stuff I do think are worth harping on. But I do think a lot of it gets overstated, and people like to slam a fist at the sky whenever they get an opportunity to. So I think a lot of that is going on for sure.
Absolutely. I'm up front. Jansen and I talk about this all the time. Any one time these situations pop up, we're up front. Like, sports gambling space is not perfect. It's not. And like, you, especially every day it evolves, and there's always something new out there that's going to bounce to the, rise to the top of your timeline. This guy was calling the coach a bad word, or, Halliburton says, I feel like a prop. Well, take a look at that contract you're making. Then that money is in there, right? Like, so would you prefer to be making the money, or, and you know what, somebody tweets you, and I got news for you. Social media is just a garbage can. So everybody gets called something. You want to call me a prop and I'm going to make NBA money? I'm cool with that. It goes hand in hand, Tyrese.
And like, from the NBA side of things, like, we're talking about teams and leagues directly correlated, that there's official sportsbook sponsors of all these professional leagues. There's teams, the Sixers included, with a sportsbook logo on their physical court, on their stanchions of the basket. Like,
multiple.
Everyone has, what's that?
Multiple, because Sixers are running with a place by the name of Betway, I want to say. I never even heard of Betway.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's everywhere. It's unavoidable. It is what it is at this point. It's the world we live in. I understand have an issue with it. I personally think the sports world has leaned into it a little more rapidly than they probably should have. But the situation is the situation, and they gotta, money talks. That is what it comes down to. So they got a lot of it, and that's why that is the case.
Yep. Sixers partnership with Parks, partnership with DraftKings, partnership with Betway, Rivers. Yep. That's 4 sports books right there off the top of my head. Who knows? They probably got something by FanDuel. They probably have something by, ESPN Bet. I don't know if that's the case. Like, it's just, like I said, everybody get their takes in, everybody get their clicks in, but let's stay consistent. That's all. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
All right, next game up. Let's keep it moving. I whined enough. Let's talk about the Pacers and the Bulls here. 2.5. Pacers on the road. I would assume that the Chicago Bulls I know they're in a play-in spot, but they just want to get to the offseason again. It's the Chicago Bulls. They're 9th right now, 34-38. Anything for you in this one, Sean?
Yeah, Bulls, another very poorly run organization that doesn't really have a mind for the future there. They have been playing better basketball on the court, specifically since the All-Star break, and the Pacers have been the direct opposite, that they feel a little bit like a sinking ship here. But I still don't know if I can fully talk myself into the Bulls getting a win here. Indiana is now in a little bit of a back against the wall spot. That when we're looking at how these standings shake out, Pacers still in that 6th seed, 16.5 games back out of first place, a game and a half above the Sixers and Heat. So they're trying to avoid that playing game from the other side of things. I do think they're feeling the heat, both from physically the Miami and obviously the pressure of, wanting to stick in that mix here. So I think they find a way to get the win tonight and unfortunately cover that -2.5. I will say from the Sixers perspective that is the number 1 team that you should be rooting against on a night in and night out standpoint, but I don't think the Bulls are good enough to take them down tonight.
Hawks, Trailblazers. Hawks just came back from 3-0 against the Boston Celtics. What is that all about? How do you lose that game? That is just incredible. I think it was the number 1 loss ever by the Celtics organization to be up by that many and lose. Portland's lost 6 or 7 straight off the top of my head. I forget what it is. They're rolling out rookie lineups. Second time we've ever seen that in the history of the league. 10.5 point spread for Atlanta, 217. Any shot Portland keeps this close?
No, I don't think so. I think that's a noteworthy win for the Atlanta Hawks over the Celtics and something that you can build off. That this team, frankly, is better than they've played all season. There's more talent on that roster than the record would indicate. And I hope that that's a little bit of can light the fire on them. They can get on the same page. I think they can cover that -10.5. That Atlanta team is far better than this Portland team, and Portland looks like a roster that is absolutely packed it up looking for next year. So give me the Hawks on the -10.5 there.
Back-to-back for the Lakers. Just had to expend all that energy in Milwaukee. Hop a flight. Got to take on a pesky Memphis Grizzlies team here. 4-point spread for the Lake Show. 223. Their favorite on the road. What's the latest with LeBron? Is he playing tonight? I know it was an ankle. Probably a little mixed in there. Get a little breather. Does it matter if LeBron plays? Do you think they'll have enough firepower to take down the Grizzlies? Where you at in this one?
Yeah, the LeBron stuff's weird that he sent kind of a cryptic text to Chris Haynes there, basically saying, I have to be very careful from here on out how I manage this ankle injury. This is something that I kind of expect to stick with me throughout the rest of the year. So I got to just manage it, deal with it, and make sure I can get to the finish line whenever that will be. So from my eyes, I think it's unlikely that he plays tonight. I believe officially listed as questionable, and they have not made a decision yet. It seems like this is going to be something that lingers. I think ultimately I still expect the Lakers to get the win, that they have other guys that have been playing very well. Austin Reeves and D'Angelo Russell especially have impressed me of late. I think against a Memphis Grizzlies team that is still incredibly young. I will shout out Brandon Clark. Looks like he's starting to make a return and should be back on the floor soon for the Grizzlies. I think it's pretty wild that he's coming back, but he's been away from basketball for over a year with that torn Achilles. So good for him for getting back fully healthy. But the bottom line is I think that this Lakers team does produce the win tonight. And they're another team that's feeling this final push for the playoffs. They need every win they can get. So I like the Lakers to get the win and cover the 4 points there.
Thunder went on the road last night, took down New Orleans. They return home. They're hosting the red hot Houston Rockets. I know I'm pulling for H-Town in this one. 230.5 is our total. Where you at in this one, Sean?
Yeah, I'm rooting for Houston, but this is a head and heart difference one that ultimately I think that there's too much of a talent gap for this Oklahoma City Thunder team to not win and cover that -7 here. But Houston's absolutely been playing some really good basketball. Shout out to Jalen Green, who's had a very turbulent NBA career to this point. the perception of him and the expectations he has not quite delivered on for the most part, but recently he's been playing some really good basketball, a couple 30-plus point performances. I think he's making better decisions with the ball in his hand, and obviously the team is benefiting because of that. So the Rockets are red hot right now, the hottest team in the NBA, and I do hope that continues against this OKC team, but I think that they're still locked in on competing for that 1 seed and will not be taking this game for granted.
3 games left on the DK card. Sean Barnard, Sean Brace breaking it down. Picks and roll. T-Wolves, 15.5-point home favorites against the Pistons. 216 is our total in this one. As far as the T-Wolves are concerned, Anthony Edwards, just an absolute beast. What are we flashing for his player prop total as far as Edwards? 27.5, right?
Wow.
Minus 140, all juiced up. We get it. Of course, the blowout's got to be into your mind here on this one. Where do you stand, Sean?
Yeah, that's what I was going to note here. Is I think that that line is more indicative of he might not play his normal minutes log. That I expected that number to still be in the 30s, but there is a real chance that the Timberwolves end this game by the second half and have built enough of a lead that you are limiting his minutes. He's terrific. He keeps getting better, and I do think like he has absolutely taken this next step forward without Karl Anthony Towns on the floor. Feels like he's needed this. That I give Cat a lot of credit for the way that he sacrificed and found a way to fit, but they put a lot of mismatched parts on this team, and it's kind of only gradually worked itself out. Gobert has played far better this year. Cat has found a way to make impact, but the bottom line is Anthony Edwards is the dude for this Timberwolves team, and he's having a chance to absolutely prove that. So I like that. I still lean towards him getting the 27.5, but I would be a little cautious of it because of that number, and I do think this ultimately turns into a blowout in favor of the Timberwolves.
We talked on Monday about the Spurs and they were playing the Suns, and you said I even liked the money line in that one. The funny thing is Wemby didn't even play in that game, which was
Yeah.
just banana land. They still won the game outright because, of course, it's the NBA on the same night that the Celtics blow a 30-point lead. Tonight, Jazz, possibly the worst team in the league, or definitely in the running for. They're 3.5-point home favorites against the Spurs here. What's the latest with Wemby? 229. And is there any shot that I think the odds makers are telling you Jazz are to play here? Where you at?
Yeah, I don't love either of these teams in this matchup. This is not one that I feel passionately about. I think I still probably roll with the Spurs to cover the plus 3.5, and I do like them as a live dog here. That the Jazz have they were a pesky team through the first half of the season, have kind of fallen off. They did trade Simone Fotichecko at the trade deadline, who's a guy
Hello.
that yeah, I think I got that right
You
in that
did.
ballpark of how you pronounce it. But he's a guy that I do think was important to that team from connecting the dots, having guys be able to play make through and just be like a real connective tissue of that team. They're definitely feeling his absence. They're 1-9 in the last 10, and I just don't have a lot of optimism for them finding a way to scratch to wins. Lauri Markkanen's still awesome. Colin Sexton's still doing his thing. There are guys there, but ultimately this is a focus on next year's situation. So Spurs, I think, are still taking things seriously as far as stuff to build off on a game-by-game basis. So I'll roll with San Antonio for that reason.
Tell you what, final game on the NBA card this evening is a pretty good one. We'll see how this one comes out from the Phoenix Suns perspective. But the Denver Nuggets, 15-2 since the All-Star break. Now top dogs in the West. I think we all agreed that that was going to be the case, that they were going to be representing the one spot in the West. Still 10 more games to be played. So, of course, but dealing with some injuries from time to time. They're 7-point favorites this evening at home against the Phoenix Suns. Shaman, our final game on the card. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I like the Nuggets to win and cover the -7 here. That the Nuggets have been taking the rest of this regular season more seriously than they did even last year, in which they won the championship. I think that having the Thunder as a team that is pushing them has been very beneficial to them as a team. That they're still playing their best basketball. It's looked smooth, it's looked clean lately, and I don't expect that to slow down at any point until the entirety of the playoff run is over. So I like the Nuggets to win and cover that -7. I think Jokic is going to have his way with Nurkic in the post. I think the Suns struggle from a matchup standpoint for this specific matchup. So this is one that even with the top end talent that Phoenix possesses, I don't like them at all in this game. And I think the Nuggets deal with it pretty easily.
Yeah, it's hard to argue with that. All right. 12 games on the NBA card, a lot to choose from. Sean Menard, let's give the people one winner. What are your thoughts?
One winner. This is a tough one. I don't love any of these plays tonight. I think I'll go Golden State Warriors plus 4.5 will be my official pick for the
Ah,
night. I think I know we're going head to head a little bit here, but I think that they are focused, that they need to stack some wins to close out the season, or at least stack some positive performances. I think they can stay within that plus 4.5 margin, and I think they have a real good chance winning outright. So give me the Warriors tonight.
all right. So what this is we have a partnership with Cut. KUTT.com. Check them out. Download the app now. And Cut specializes in peer-to-peer. So you're going to see an NBA wager sent your way this evening or this afternoon. I'll get that to you ASAP. Let's go ahead and put a little friendly wager, a little 10 spot, head to head. Let's go. I'm going to take the Orlando Magic at home. I hate betting against the Golden State. I hate it. But that line, I think, is making me lean towards Orlando Magic. At home, I'll take the Magic, especially with the Warriors coming off the road there. A game that wasn't all that difficult, but, you know, when you're going into Miami with the Heat culture, that mentality, all that, who knows? Maybe they went out last night. I don't know. Quick trip up to Orlando. Maybe they stayed in Miami for the night. Who knows? We shall see. But I'm going to back the Orlando Magic at home. I think it's 4.5. So we'll see how that one comes out. All right. Sixers, though, tonight. Look forward to watching that game, of course, in great detail. Be sure to follow Sean at Sean_Barnard1. That is the number one. We'll be back at it. All things picks and roll, recapping the NBA as much as possible over the next 2 days. But, folks, of course, the madness is here, so no denying that. But just better realize that NCAA is pretty much going to be wrapped up next week. And then it's nothing but NBA for the next 2.5 months.
Oh,
yeah. 3 months if we want to throw in the NBA draft. So it is all things picks and roll after next week. Sean Barnard, myself, we're going to be tackling all things NBA and a DraftKings card. Good luck to everybody. And if you missed anything, once again, you can find all of our content at foxphlgambler.com.